And now I walk around so scared to breathe or think or drive, or I'm just scared.
Happy birthday, Mommy's baby. I miss you. I hope you have a wonderful day. I am so grateful and thankful to God for giving me such a miracle package. I love you. Come home safely. Bye, Mommy's baby.
Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I am here again for my first story time. This is a topic that many people have asked me about, and I've talked about a little bit here and there, but I never really got into detail. One, because I was scared to because of judgment, and also because it was also very difficult for me. But I understand there's a lot of people also going through this same thing, and so I wanted to share my story to hopefully um, help someone else. So before we get started, please do me a favor. Click the link down below and subscribe to my channel. It's the big red button that says subscribe. Please subscribe to me. Leave a thumbs up on this video. Please leave a comment. I would greatly appreciate it. So without further ado, let's get into it. So I am the only child of Miss Tammara Winn, my mother, one of the best people I've ever met in my entire life. My mother passed away last year on the 4th of July from liver and lung cancer. She was diagnosed just a year before that with liver cancer, and with time it spread to her lungs, and eventually she passed away. And I haven't been dealing with her death very well, I will not lie. And many people understood why, but I think I've been taking it a lot harder than most individuals. But there's reasons for that. Again, I grew up in a single parent household, the only child. I do have a brother and a sister, and a father. My dad passed away a week before I was born. My oldest sister passed away a week after she was born, and my brother passed away a year after he was born. And so my mother was very used to her children passing away. So as the story she tells it, when I was born, she already had my funeral planned out because she assumed, none of her kids would really make it. But I was the miracle baby. So me and my mother became really, 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 really close, especially because it was just the both of us. Now, I have a large family, I do, but we're really, really spread out. So my mother and I were the only ones in Illinois, here in Chicago together. So even though I had a large family, and I've never felt the large family experience. So again, it was just me and my mom. And we have been through so much. My mother dealt with a lot of things in her early life, including addiction, to substance abuse. And so I, as a kid, even though she was dealing with it, it obviously affected me as well, seeing a parent go through some of those things. Now, don't get me wrong, my mother was always still an amazing parent. I still had everything I needed. I had everything I wanted. I never felt neglected. She was never not with me. But she did have her challenges. And at the age of 12, her challenges led us to a milestone in our life. At the time, I had a stepfather who was just not a very nice person at all. But my mother was in love with him. And I understand sometimes you fall in love with people that you don't necessarily need to be with. And I never liked him, but I tolerated him because I loved my mom. But one day I woke up to them in a physical altercation. And when I mean by a physical altercation, he was trying to kill my mother. And as a 12-year-old, I kind of freaked out. So I called the police, and some things transpired that I will not share just out of respect of my family, but it led to my mother going to prison. And so at the age of 12, I dealt with my mother going away to prison for a little bit of time. And, my family being in other states far, far away, everyone was trying to figure out what to do with me, what to do for me. And so I'm lucky enough that my mother and I were part of an amazing church and would not allow me to go into the foster care system. So, again, at the age of 12, my church provided me with a home, an apartment to live in. It was a 2-story apartment building. Beneath me was one of the elders of my church on the motherboard. And so my church pretty much said, you can live up here while your mother's away. The young lady downstairs will kind of look after you, make sure that you're safe, make sure you don't need anything, but this is the best we could do. So at the age of 12, I started to live on my own. I started to do things on my own. I went to Lincoln Mall here in Matson, Illinois, and lied on my job application and said I was 16, and I got a job at Dairy Queen in order to make sure I got some money. So I started to take a cab to and from school every day. Right after school, I would take a cab from school straight to work, and I would work until 9 o'clock at night, and I would go home and I would repeat. Even though there was someone under me that was responsible for taking care of me, I must be honest, I saw her maybe once a month, maybe. So essentially, I was on my own taking care of myself. And in order to ensure that people in the neighborhood did not think that I was a 12-year-old, 13-year-old living alone, I had to do things as it would if I had a parent. I don't know where I got these ideas from, but at certain parts of the day, I would open up the window and play some of my mom's favorite music so that it could feel like someone older lived in the home. I would leave and go to school, and when I saw neighbors on the porch, I would wave at my window, an empty window, just so they can think I was waving at a parent. I would even so often as go across the street sometimes to neighbors and say, hey, my mom sent me over to borrow some sugar or to borrow this or to borrow that, just so they can think I had a parent in the household, because I was terrified of the foster care system. Throughout this time, my mother and I talked on the phone quite a bit when she was able to phone me from where she was. And she was released from that situation when I was 16 years old. And so, reuniting with my mother was something amazing. I thought everything would be back to normal. I thought, life would go back to being great. But obviously, when you are a child, and some of your most developing years, you have to raise yourself. You have a certain mindset, and you get into a certain brain space, and then a parent comes in, and even though they have been gone, they still know that they're your parent. And so that caused a lot of clashing for the two of us. On top of a day after my mother returning home, I told her that I was gay. So it was a lot of things that we were dealing with. But lucky for me, me and my mother were strong. We loved each other, and we got through it. My sophomore year of high school, I've talked about this in other videos, but I was sexually assaulted by one of my counselors at my high school. And that was a very long and tedious trial that I had to go through. And, my mother was right there with me. She never made me feel like it was my fault. She never made me feel less than. She was right there with me fighting this case with me, and that meant a lot to me. There was a time for a period in high school that my mother and I were even homeless. And, 99% of the people in my life still don't know that to this day. But we lived on the street for a good month and a half, trying to fend for ourselves until we could get back on our feet. But it was those situations that just kind of made us Bonnie and Clyde, Batman and Robin, and we became thick as thieves. It was time for me to go off to college, and we didn't have a lot of money. So my mother asked a friend of hers to borrow her car for a day to take me to school. She didn't tell her friend where. She said, I need to take my son to school, let me borrow your car for the day. And my mother, packed up the vehicle, and we drove 18 hours to Columbia, South Carolina. she pulled up to the school, helped me unpack all of my bags right there in the street, and she went right back home and drove another 18 hours back to Chicago because she couldn't afford to take a day off of work. And you know, that meant a lot to me, a lot to me. A lot of mothers would have, you know, made an excuse or found someone else to take them or whatever have you. My mother said, nope, I'm taking my son to school. It means a lot to me. But I also have responsibilities to make sure that my son can stay in school, so I need to get back to work. And so that taught me a lot about persistence, about commitment, about obligation, and about hard work. And I never forgot that. I was so appreciative of that very, very moment to know she drove, 30-something hours without sleeping, driving on the road for me. That meant a lot to me. And so, all of these things just created a bond between my mother and I that I cherished a great deal. In my 20s and early 30s, obviously, my mother and I had our ups and downs. But we were very, very close. We were very, very close knit, and our bond was so strong. Especially because we had been through so much. Then it was just her and I. We kind of always led each other through paths. We leaned on each other to get each other through. When things were wrong or things went bad, we were always running to each other and no one else in the entire world. If she had a problem, I would be the first one she would talk to, and vice versa. So we kind of became each other's rocks, if you will. So my mother was diagnosed with cancer. I remember she said she wasn't feeling well, and we went for a routine checkup at the doctor. Being at the doctor is something very, very private. So I was used to waiting in the waiting room when my mother went to the doctor, because she's a woman, I'm a man. There's things that she has to speak to the doctor about that I'm not privy to. But I remember it just something felt odd about this appointment. And she went to the doctor's office and was in there maybe an hour. Then she came out in a ball of tears and she just sat next to me. And I was like, what's wrong? What's the matter? And she said, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. And I said, not ready for what? And she responded, I'm not ready to leave you. And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, what's going on? And she said, the doctor just told me I have cancer and I'm not ready to leave you. And it's something to be said when a person finds out they're dying and they think about you first. I was so blown away in that moment that she found out her life was ending, but all she could think about was me. And I guess you could say that that's what mothers do, but it still was just profound to me. And I've never had anyone in my life to die or have a terminal illness or anything like that. So for me, I just kind of went into, you're going to be fine. They have treatments, we'll get chemo, it'll be perfectly fine. You're not going to die, you'll be fine. So for the next year, we went through treatments, chemo and radiation. And, she would have her great months where she felt like everything was back to normal. We were so optimistic. And then she would have her moments of, I know that this is the end. But I always stayed optimistic and said, you're going to be fine. Because I knew that. I felt that. That was how I was able to push through, because I knew she's going to be fine. I know she's scared, but she's going to be okay. January of last year, we went to the doctor, and he sat both of us down, and he said, I have to be honest. Nothing is working. Her tumor has grown from the size of a golf ball to the size of a tennis ball, and it has spread, and nothing is working. So you should prepare for the worst. And again, my mother cried and, said, what about my son? What about my son? What about my son? And I still went ahead and said, I'm going to be fine. You're going to be fine. I don't understand why everyone's crying. I understand you're scared, but we're going to be fine. But the next few months just weren't fine. She got sicker and sicker and sicker by the day, but I was still optimistic that everything would be okay, because I was told, when you believe in God, it's supposed to be okay. So I kind of leaned on my faith and said everything will be fine. And God knows I need my mom, so we're gonna be okay. The 4th of July last year came, and obviously I was off of work. And my mother's best friend called. She lived with her best friend to take care of her. At church, she called and said, "Hey, your mother's not doing too good. I think you should come." And me being selfish, I said, "Are you sure? You know, it's my only day off. I haven't had a day off in months. I'm really tired. I just really want to relax at home. Are you sure?" And she said, "I think you should come." So I said, "Okay, I think she's going to be fine. I think she just needs to rest and go to sleep, but I'll come." When I got to my mom's house, I looked at her and she couldn't speak. She physically could not speak. And I said, "Okay, maybe something is wrong." So I remember picking her up and putting her on the couch and just saying, "We'll just rest for a minute. We'll just sit." And I glanced at her, her eyes were rolling in the back of her head and she was convulsing. And I said, "Okay, something's wrong." So we immediately jumped in the car. We took her to the hospital, the emergency room. By the time we got to the emergency room, she was back to normal. She was speaking a little bit. Her color was back. So I said, "See, I knew it. You know, this was a bad episode, but I knew everything was going to be fine." And the doctor proceeded to give my mom an IV and several shots. And this is when things got a little strange. So my mother and I, our whole life, have been known to have extremely small veins. So when we have to get a shot or an IV or anything like that at the hospital, it's extremely painful for the both of us. Extremely. To the point where when my mother would get a shot or an IV, you could hear her screaming from the other end of the hospital. It was just that painful. But we were used to that. So it's time to give her an IV. And the doctor puts in the needle and nothing. My mother doesn't flinch. She doesn't budge. Nothing. And I remember saying to myself, "Well, this is odd. How does she not feel that?" And something in my brain said, "She's dying." And that was the first time I had processed everything is not going to be okay. So the doctor gave her several shots, an IV, and he said, "Look, you know, there's nothing we can do. You have two choices. She can stay in the hospital and we can make her comfortable, or she can go home and be comfortable. But no, you don't have much time left." And I said, "Okay." You know, I gave my mother those options, and obviously she wanted to go home. She said, "I want to go home. I want to be comfortable. I want to go home." So we took her home. And by the time we got home, she was back to the state when I found her in the morning. She couldn't speak. She couldn't talk. Nothing. She was physically unable to do anything. And I remember she kind of like positioned me and kind of rubbed herself and pointed at the soap to say that she wanted a bath. So I undressed her and I put her in the bath. I put on Anita Baker, her favorite artist, and I bathed her. Gave her a bath, and I just talked to her. You know, she wasn't able to talk back, but I just talked to her and told her how much I loved her and how everything was going to be okay, because a part of me still felt like it was. I dried her off, I put on her nightgown, and I laid her on the couch. And she grabbed my hand, and she looked at me. And in that moment, she had the perfect voice, as if nothing in the world had been wrong. She didn't sound tired. She didn't sound flustered. She didn't sound sick. And she looked at me and she said, "My baby, I love you. Know that mommy loves you. And everything's going to be okay." And she said, "I'm proud of you. And I'm always going to be there for you. You got to promise me you're going to be okay. You got to promise me that you're going to be a good person and you're going to be something." And I was so shocked that she was even speaking that I couldn't process the words she was saying. And so I said, "Of course, Mom, like, you know, you're going to be fine. Don't be dramatic. Everything is going to be just fine." And as soon as I said that, she went back to her vegetative state. And about 2 hours later, I put her in the bed, and I just felt off. Um, I called my boyfriend at the time and I said, I think my mom is going to die today. Could you come to the house and just, keep me company? And he immediately jumped in his car and he got there about 30 minutes later. And we were just sitting on the couch talking. She was asleep. And I said, I just want her to go to sleep and wake up in the morning and everything's going to be fine. I went back in about midnight. And I said, Mom, are you okay? And she said, now I am, son. And I said, oh, okay, I'm here. I'm not going home. I'm going to stay with you. I'm going to call off work and I'm going to stay with you today as well. And she said, you don't need to do that, honey. And I said, well, why not? She said, you just don't need to do that. I'm fine now. Everything's fine. And then she looked at me and she said, your dad says hi. She said, your dad says hi. And your sister and your brother are waiting on me. And she clenched my hand. And she closed her eyes. And she said, let's go. And I felt her grip leave. And just like that, she was gone. And her best friend and my boyfriend called the coroner and the ambulance and all of that. And I just sat next to her body like I couldn't understand. I couldn't believe it. And I was so angry because I just never thought that my mom would die. And I know that everybody has a moment where they have to die and they have to go. But I just never expected it would be my mom, And she's been gone 1.5 years now. And I just haven't been okay. And I think I haven't been okay because my entire life my mother was my partner. And I just don't understand how you go through life without a partner. And I have friends, and I have family, and I have people who care about me, and I know that. But I just don't understand how a person can go through life without a partner. And I feel immensely alone, and I feel scared. I've never ever been scared of anything in my life because my mother was always there. She was the kind of mom that if I got bullied or picked on, she was fighting people's parents for me. Like, that she would protect me at all costs. So I never felt fear in my life because I knew I always had a protector. And now I walk around so scared to breathe or think or drive, or I'm just scared. And I don't understand this. And I don't know. But I'm sharing this because I figure that every day somebody loses their parent, and I'm not alone in this. And hopefully I can help somebody, and somebody can help me. But losing a parent is extremely difficult, and it's not something I can imagine myself getting over anytime soon. So I don't know. But thank you guys for listening and taking the time out. Let's just talk, guys. Let's help each other out. Leave a comment below. share your experiences, share other experiences of people that you know, and let's get together and help build each other up and be stronger, okay? Thank y'all for listening. Peace. Gotcha, it's a video.
It was not.
It is a video.
Now it's a video, but it wasn't a video at first.
Now it is.
Hi. I'm out here with my son in the beautiful, beautiful air in Park Forest at the Spa Theater. We're waiting. It's intermission time. We're waiting for the Lucas show to continue. But we're having a good time so far.
Mama, you just gave the serial killer our exact coordinates of where we at.
I did.
You did.
I told him where you were.
You did.